Welcome to Fall College Planning at BASIS Scottsdale. This event complements the Spring College Planning Night as well as the one-on-one meetings that will be held with students beginning in January. Throughout the evening, please make sure to have your college counseling workbook handy as we will frequently be referencing its contents. Before we progress too much further, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Megan Mitrovich, and I am the lead college counselor at BASIS Scottsdale, as well as the subject advisor for college counseling at BASIS Schools. I've now been with BASIS for a full 3 years, meaning that I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with your upper school students since ninth grade. Previous to BASIS, I was an academic advisor at the University of Minnesota and completed a 2-year fellowship in the Dean's Office at Harvard College. I earned my master's in higher education at Harvard University and triple majored in psychology, French, and organizational behavior at the University of Michigan. My colleague, Michelle Connor, has been a fantastic addition to the college counseling office. She has now been with BASIS Scottsdale for 2 years. She earned her master's in counseling at Arizona State University, where she also taught freshman classes on major and career planning, as well as her bachelor's in psychology from the University of Arizona. Here is tonight's agenda. You'll notice that the top item is checklists. At the front of the college counseling workbook, you will find grade-specific checklists for 9th, 10th, and 11th grades. These checklists are a compilation of all the information that will be presented throughout this evening and are a helpful reference point. Now, let's talk about general college admissions criteria. You may find it helpful to reference the college admissions criteria handout in your college counseling workbook, as the following slides are taken directly from this document. Although there are numbers attached to each slide for the purposes of this show, by no means is this meant to indicate that certain criteria are more important than others in the college admissions process. Depending on the college or university, more or less weight may be placed upon particular factors. But generally speaking, the college admissions process is a holistic one, and every single piece of the process matters. So let's talk about high school courses and grades. Every student at BASIS Scottsdale has a transcript that lists coursework from grades 9 through 12 listed by year with the corresponding final grade. And this is different from report cards in that trimester grades do not appear at all and are not reported externally. So it truly is only that final grade earned in each class. In addition to 9th through 12th grade coursework, certain 8th grade classes will appear on that transcript. These are Algebra 2, AP, World History, and Economics. And it's because these classes actually satisfy high school graduation requirements. And by these classes appearing on the transcript, the student has proof that they did in fact take the courses. So a grade for each of these classes does appear on the transcript, but does not touch or factor into the student's GPA. If a student took other AP courses in 8th grade or satisfied, let's say, math requirements for graduation prior to that 8th grade year, those will also appear on the transcript. If a student does take AP courses prior to 9th grade, they will appear on the transcript as advanced as opposed to AP because the College Board actually does not allow us to use the AP term for coursework prior to that 9th grade year. Colleges evaluate the overall rigor of a student's curriculum when they are evaluating him or her. This really benefits BASIS students because the coursework or the curriculum is undeniably rigorous. So they don't have to worry about whether or not what they've done will appear challenging in the eyes of colleges. However, this is really an important opportunity for students to take advantage of that rigorous curriculum, of those advanced courses available to them, particularly in their interest areas. So a student that wants to pursue a particular science subject should maybe specialize early on and make sure to take those post-AP and capstone courses that are available to them to show that they've number one, explored their interest and developed it, but number two, also achieved a certain level of proficiency or expertise. This is also true for students' elective classes. So, as another example, if a student is going to show that they are really interested in studying something related to law or, let's say, social justice or criminology, it would probably serve them well to take an elective like Intro to Law to show that's something that they've really thought about and that they are able to enter that field from a more educated perspective and that it truly is something that interests them. Selective colleges and universities look to see how prepared the student is for college based on the college prep courses they've taken. So these are the pre-AP or honors and the AP courses, as well as the capstones. And although the AP scores do not appear on a student's transcript for the AP courses that a student has taken, an asterisk will appear next to the name if they also sat for the AP examination. But again, the scores do not appear on the transcript and they are not sent to the colleges. That is something that the student can choose to self-report, but it is their choice. So let's talk about grade point average or GPA. Every single school year, the students' final grades across their classes is averaged, and that is the yearly GPA that appears on the student's report card. Also averaged are the final grades for all the students' coursework from 9th through 12th grades, and that is the cumulative GPA. GPAs at BASIS Scottsdale are calculated on an unweighted scale as well as a weighted scale, and that unweighted scale is out of 4 points, whereas the weighted scale is out of 5. On the unweighted scale, an A would equate to 4 points. On the weighted scale, it would equate to 5 points. So an extra point is added to honors, AP, post-AP, capstone, and advanced math courses, which are pre-calculus and higher. One of the reasons that BASIS added weighted GPA about 2 years ago was for external reviewers. So when a student applied to something like a scholarship or internship opportunity previously, if the external reviewer didn't have an education background, they might think that a BASIS Scottsdale student with a 4.0 unweighted GPA had not achieved as much academically as a student who had a weighted 4.1 GPA. So there sometimes was a bit of misunderstanding there. So we're essentially giving both the unweighted and the weighted GPA to students. It appears on their transcript, so it's essentially helping them to be able to provide both. To account for different grading scales across high schools, colleges tend to recalculate the applicant's GPA anyway, each using their own system. Stanford has told me that they don't even recalculate, they simply look at the difficulty of the courses a student took and the final grades earned. So it's really as simple as that. The colleges really want to see consistency in grades or an upward trend, meaning that as a student progresses from 9th through 12th grade, that they are consistently doing well or that the grades are increasing. And the colleges know that 9th grade can often be a transitional year, so some don't even include that year in their calculations. But it's important for students to realize that a strong 9th or 10th grade year can't compensate for lower grades in that junior year, even if the overall GPA is high. The junior year is very important in that it serves as a snapshot. It's the most; those are the most recent grades that the colleges have to look at when a student initially applies to college. So they're essentially used as indicators of how well that student will fare once they arrive on campus. So really important to keep that under consideration, that they want to see that a student will continue to do well or even do better as their courses become more challenging, and that they are rising to that occasion. Let's talk about standardized test scores. So these include, for college admissions purposes, the SAT, ACT, subject tests, and AP exams. So the SAT subject tests, and AP are all through the College Board, and the ACT is a separate organization. These Different types of scores can be used in the evaluation process. We often get questions as well about the PSAT, which is a practice SAT. All of our students take this exam in 9th, 10th, 11th grades. However, in 9th and 10th, we actually advise students to not practice or prepare, and that is intentional. We want a baseline. We want to know where and how they can improve their scores, and we need that baseline to do that. And those PSAT scores from 9th and 10th grade actually don't count for anything. Whereas in junior year, we want students to prepare for that test in October because they will be eligible for something called National Merit Consideration. And if a student is in the top 3% of PSAT scores in that junior year, they will be recognized as a commended National Merit Scholar. If the student is in the top 1.25% of scores on a statewide distribution basis, they will then advance to become a semifinalist and compete to become a finalist. And this has scholarship opportunities attached to it, and it also is a prestigious honor that students can report to the colleges and universities. So it can enhance an application, but it's not going to hurt a student if they don't do well. And also, those PSAT scores are not sent to the schools regardless. Another thing I want to mention regarding PSAT scores that I'm sure might interest you is that this year, to be a commended scholar, the selection index in nationally was 209, and in Arizona, the selection index to become a national merit semifinalist was a 219, which corresponded to a score of 1470 out of 1520 on that exam. There are a few schools that are test optional, meaning they don't require students to send test scores at all to apply. Wesleyan is an example. However, most schools, and at least one that students apply to, typically will, especially for scholarship consideration. So they'll require the SAT or the ACT, typically with writing. And we always advise students to sign up for the ACT with writing because they can't later go back and take the writing if it's required and tack it onto an old score. They'd have to retake the entire exam, and those would be two separate scores. The SAT and the ACT are considered to be equals in the eyes of the colleges, so there's not a preference for one over the other. The reason that we encourage students to start with the SAT is because the PSAT has scholarship opportunities and recognition attached to it, whereas the ACT does not have accompanying scholarship opportunities. So we encourage students to take the SAT 1 in October or November of that junior year, and that's so that they can kill two birds with one stone, meaning that they won't have to sustain their preparation for too long after they take that PSAT, and then they'll be able to receive their scores to make an informed decision about whether to call it good or retake the SAT or potentially transition to the ACT. But again, those are equivalents in the eyes of the colleges. The SAT has a math and a reading and writing section. Both are 800 points, so 1,600 points total. And there are sub-scores, so smaller sections within each of those that students get a sub-score report for. Same with the ACT, there are a few sections. It's out of 36 points, so a composite out of 36, which is the average, but out of 36 total in each of its sections. Different from the SAT, it has a science section, but this is actually the interpretation of charts and diagrams and doesn't require expertise in any particular science subject. So those are the two different tests that students have to choose from. They can send one, they can send both. When a student registers for one of these tests, we encourage them, even though they have the option of sending school reports to colleges for no cost, to not do so. Because if they don't, they have the option as a senior to choose where their scores go and which scores go where. And if they do send those score reports when they register, it becomes an automatic part of their application file at the colleges and the universities. So we encourage them to hold off. If there are any financial concerns, we want students or parents to come speak with us one-on-one, confidentially, and we can help you determine whether or not you are eligible for a test fee or score report waiver. Many schools require students to take the SAT subject test in addition to the ACT or SAT. Especially STEM schools or engineering schools will ask students to send the math level 2, not 1, just math level 2, plus a science, oftentimes of their choice. Our own Mr. Peacher has done a lot of research on this and has found that students tend to fare best on the math level 2 upon completion of AP Calculus BC. And again, we encourage students not to send their scores to the colleges when they're registering, because then through score choice, when they do send the scores to the colleges, they could, for example, send their best math level 2 score even if they had retaken that test, or choose not to send at all. Typically, we advise students to send subject test scores of 700 or higher to selective or moderately selective institutions and reserve scores of 750 or higher for the very highly selective universities, just to give you a baseline. There are a few schools out there that do require students to send their entire school report history. So the University of Pennsylvania and Stanford are the two that come to mind. Most schools do superscore, meaning they take the student's highest scores across sections, across test dates. Some schools will do the highest overall test score date, so you can reference your standardized testing packet to learn more, but that is a basic overview of standardized testing. When students take the SAT subject test, they can register for up to 3 on one day. Typically, we hear 2 is manageable, 3 is a lot. They can also order the tests in the order that they want to take them. So that's an important thing to note. They can't take the SAT 1 and the SAT subject test on the same date. So there is some planning involved there in terms of which tests to take and when. Now let's talk about admissions essays. So most applications will require some sort of essay or personal statement. A lot of colleges use the Common Application. There was a new application introduced this year called the Coalition Application that more schools are going to begin to use. However, in addition to this personal statement, the different schools often have their own school-specific supplemental short answers or essays, and those do change every year, so no need to reference those now, but to let you know. We encourage students to start journaling or tracking important life experiences. We're going to show you the college counseling questionnaire that's available to students a little bit later on, but that's also a good place to go to record experiences that you have as you have them, so that you can go back and reflect on these and what has shaped you into the person you are when the time to write these essays comes. And we also have a college counseling workshop that is offered during the summer to get a head start on this essay. And every year, about half of the senior class has participated during the 2 years that it has been offered. So if a school does not use the Common Application for that or that supplemental essay, it will use its own prompts, and oftentimes it's going to ask, why our school? So this leads me to suggest that if a student does have interaction or touch points with the school, that they record them, their observations, their experiences, if they visit campus, if they go to a college visit at our school. This year we had 94 schools that visited, which was amazing. But also after each college visit, students are sent an impressions survey, and that's an opportunity for them to answer questions about what they learned about the school, what they liked, what they disliked, completely confidential, but it is something that students can later return back to when they're looking for fodder about why they're applying to a particular school. Letters of recommendation. So almost every single school that students apply to will ask for some form of letters of recommendation. One letter will come from the college counselor. So one of the cool things about BASIS is that every single student gets a highly detailed, individualized custom letter of recommendation from their counselor. So templates are used, it is unique to the student. And then there are the additional 2 letters of recommendation. So we suggest that one come from a teacher within the hard sciences or math, and the second come from someone in the humanities or social sciences. And this is something that is often required by the colleges. They want to know how the student performs in the subject that interests them. So good to ask a student or a teacher rather that's in a subject that you intend to pursue. in college or career. And then the second should come from a teacher outside of that area. So that's someone that can talk about really important things like your attitude, your contributions in the classroom. Um, what did you do when things got tough? So a good letter of recommendation doesn't say the student got an A and aced every quiz because the schools can already see the final grade on the transcript. Instead, it talks about character traits, personality traits. So these are the important things, and students should really be thinking about forging those meaningful relationships with their teachers now. The teachers writing these letters will probably be from the junior or senior year, ideally, but students might have some of the same teachers as they go into those years, and then they can talk about how the student has developed and how their relationship has grown over time. Obviously, the letter should only come from a teacher that has a positive relationship with the student. And for this reason, towards the end of each school year, college counseling meets with the different departments to talk about which teacher might be best suited to write the letter for a student. So we'll first, during our one-on-ones, ask the juniors, name 2 teachers that you think might ask for letters of recommendation, and 2 words you think they would use to describe you, which can often be telling in terms of who they might ask. And then we'll take their preferences to that departmental meeting, and the teachers will discuss if those requests make sense and if there's someone that is better suited to write the letter for the student. So it always ends up that the student gets the most favorable possible letters of recommendation. Sometimes schools allow students to provide external recommendations in addition to the teacher recommendations, and these should be recommendations that really add something additional, some insight that couldn't be found elsewhere. They shouldn't come from another teacher per se unless there's a reason for that. So the more recommendations, the better isn't actually the case. So actually, the Georgetown admissions office said last year that they received 40 letters of recommendation for a particular student, and their response was, the thicker the file, the thicker the kid. So you want to give them as few documents as possible, but really significant documents that can, again, portray that student in a different light. Extracurricular involvements is a big one. So always quality over quantity. So dedication and commitment are key. The Common Application asks students to list and describe up to 10 extracurricular activities, and these should be in the order of personal significance. And the Common Application, again, with the 10 is kind of the maximum number I've seen, although students can often upload a resume with their application, but some applications will limit them to 5 or 8 letters of, or not letters, but extracurricular involvements. So that's something important to note. We do encourage students to record their extracurricular involvements in their college counseling questionnaire, and that's something that they can update and track in real time, so that's great. And not to just list the name of the activity, but the ins and outs of what they did. So their actual participation and what it looked like. So the seniors this year had kind of a joke that was hashtag attended meetings, and it was meant to inspire them to go beyond that. So did they help plan specific events? Were they on committees? What were the efforts that they were involved in? And to name those things very specifically. So those are the rich details that students should add to their extracurricular activity descriptions and that they can track in that college counseling questionnaire. It's important that the student show an investment over time. So again, that it be something that the student cares about. This is also a really good opportunity to back up academic and personal interest. So if a student is really involved in something like medicine, they should have some experiences that connect or tie to that. Although the student is limited to 9th through 12th grade involvements, if they began earlier, they definitely should include that in the description. So let's say a student has been playing the piano since they were 4, they should definitely include in the description that they've been playing since that young age, even though they can't indicate in the application itself in terms of the fields they select that the involvement was outside of grades 9 through 12. So the colleges will ask the students how much time they spend on a particular activity per week. So honor code system, obviously there aren't more than 24 hours in a day, and what you list should make sense. Students should also be thinking about leadership positions and how they can take them on, especially in 11th and 12th grade. And leadership doesn't have to be an elected office. I think that's often a perception that students have, but it can instead be how you led or had an impact even behind the scenes. How did you organize a group? Was there a committee that you chaired? So on and so forth. So now let's talk about special talent. So this is something that colleges often look for in a student as they look to create diverse incoming class as well as student body. So what might that look like? It could be athletic, artistic, it could be musical. And oftentimes these criteria are also used to evaluate a student for additional scholarships. And one of the important things here is that students might need to begin thinking about this early on. So, for instance, athletes will need to reach out to college coaches and recruiters. We do work with the NCAA, and we obviously are accredited. We have basis athletes from our school at Vassar playing soccer and Emma Lavelle, and we have a gymnast at Berkeley and Roshan Tupal. So we definitely have basis athletes that go on to compete at that college level, but it is up to them to take those preliminary steps to find out what they need to do and what the expectations are. And then actors, artists, musicians may need to audition or put together supplemental portfolios, and sometimes it takes time to compile these portfolios as well as to make sure that a student has prepared the necessary works. We have great resources in Ms. Markle, our drama teacher, as well as Ms. Hardy, our art teacher. So there are definitely resources available to help students with this process. Really excited, 2 years ago, we had our first students go on to study film and art. So that was something that I thought was a neat diversification in terms of the majors and careers that students ultimately pursue. Demonstrated interest. So many schools actually track this. They're looking to see, how interested a student is. Some schools don't track it at all. But one of the important things a student can do is actually go to the college visit, especially that junior and senior year, if a particular school comes to Basis Scottsdale. There is no expectation that a student will spend money to travel to a campus, but if they do find themselves on a campus, they should definitely take a tour and check in um, for with the campus visit office to make sure that that visit is on the books. Any correspondence that a student has with the email or emailing an admissions officer also goes into their file. So students should be asking informed questions, not easily Googleable ones that can, perhaps be answered on a website or via a simple phone call. So that's something to be mindful of. And schools have started to recently track whether or not students answer or open emails as well. So if a student is really interested in a particular college or university, they might want to make sure to click on that message in their inbox. So here is an overview of what we just discussed. So the colleges and universities essentially use demonstrated interest as a means of determining whether or not a student is likely to attend if admitted, because that yield is very important. So now let's move on to talk about course sequencing and graduation. So this form that you see on the left, or this document I should say, is actually one I created when I started at Basis 3 years ago, just to wrap my own mind around this intense curriculum. So you'll see all the different graduation requirements, and so long as a student has passed all of their classes and also satisfied the fine arts requirement, he or she is eligible for early graduation if that's a route that the student wants to pursue. And we encourage them to have that conversation with us in 10th grade if it is something that they are considering for personal reasons. Every year we have one or two early graduates. So you'll see here that by subject, there is a progression. You'll see the number of AP courses by year. In italics, you'll see the progression for LEAP students. So that 12th grade optional year, why would students stay? Well, they get to take intense seminar-based classes with their teachers that are more focused on a particular subject area. And that's a really great way to gain a foundation for college, as well as to also communicate or show that interest in a particular field of study or major if a student is applying to a school with an intended major in mind. You'll notice that students must take one AP exam in each core subject. They must pass at least one AP exam in any subject in order to graduate. So they're taking one AP in each core subject, but not necessarily meaning that they have to pass each one, even though the vast majority, almost 100% of students do. And then for the 2 additional AP exams for the lab science, it's important to note that it's up to the student if they don't take that second AP lab science to connect with college counseling about taking an approved AP social science class in its place. And typically, we only advise students to go this route if they don't have interest in pursuing math or science major in college. But for some students, this is the decision that they choose to make, so they are able to take an approved AP lab or social science in place of a second AP lab science. But I don't want this to be confused for AP Physics 1, which for sequencing purposes at our school counts as honors physics. So last year, the College Board created AP Physics 1, which is essentially for the purposes of the basis curriculum what was honors physics, and students are required to take all 3 honors science classes, and in Arizona, students are also required to take biology in 9th or 10th grade. So that is important to note that they have to take that honors class then. Students take at least one elective in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, as well as college counseling in the 12th, which is a huge benefit to the basis curriculum that we get to interact with those seniors 50 minutes every single day of their senior year, helping them make progress on those college applications and giving them very individualized attention on everything from the essays to the application portal itself to sending in the necessary documents and helping them connect with admissions representatives. So a lot going into that. You'll also note that at least one credit of electives must be fine arts. So here's our AP exam conversion scale. This is probably something you've seen before. It is subject to change, but this is the current version that you will find online on the BASIS website. So just to give you an idea of the impact that the AP exam can have on a student's final course grade. If a student chooses not to take the AP exam for an AP course, they will instead be given an alternative exam based on prior year's AP exams, and that will account for 40% of their final grade in a class. And that final course grade is the only grade that appears on students' transcripts. As we discussed, the trimester grades do not appear. And oftentimes we're asked if it's the AP conversion that is what creates the weighted GPA. It's actually not. So the final grade will impact both the weighted and unweighted GPA, and that is the final grade once the AP conversion has been applied. So let's talk about our fine arts elective. So students are required to satisfy 1 credit of fine arts in order to graduate. At our school, that could be art, it could be piano, it could be orchestra, it could be speech and debate even, is kind of the one that people don't necessarily guess would, but music theory, AP art history would be another one. So a lot of different classes at our school that satisfy this requirement, but if a student wants to satisfy it outside of school, they can. What we need is for them to complete the cover sheet of the outside elective form that's available on Naviance, but also can be found in your college counseling workbook. And once they get our approval to move forward with that activity and have given us the contact information for the supervising official, they can move forward. And between August 1st and August 1st of a full calendar year, so they also get the summer, they must acquire 120 hours of practice, rehearsal, instruction. And once they turn in that log to us, we will add 1 credit to their transcript under the relevant year. And that 1 credit will be pass-fail, so no letter grade, and it will not impact their GPA, whereas the courses taken at our school would. So our honors policy has undergone some recent changes, so we want to take some time to review that with you now. To graduate with honors, this has remained the same. A student must complete 4 capstone courses their senior year. Those would be a humanities, math, science, and foreign language. A final grade in each of B- or higher, and AP research can count as a humanities. So this is all required for a student to graduate with honors. And it's important to note that 4 capstones must be within these different subjects. It's not 4 capstones total of the student's choice. And then to graduate with high honors, students must also complete a senior project in the relevant requirements, so that has remained the same. Or instead, they can complete all the requirements for the AP research course, plus an internship, which will be 10 hours per week, relevant to their research project. Senior project is 15 hours per week at a site. And this is a really cool aspect, a unique aspect of the BASIS curriculum, because the students actually leave during their 3rd trimester of their senior year to go off and complete this individually designed research project and really explore an area of interest or complete a passion project that they might otherwise not have time to pursue. And when they do this, they're able to let the colleges know about this upfront when they're applying, which is really neat, especially if a student is trying to enhance their application to show interest in a particular area. And then if a student wants to provide a mid-year update or if they're deferred from a college, which is often the case, so they apply early and they're not accepted or rejected but move to the regular pool, this is something that they can show in terms of what they are up to. And they can also provide a link to their blog, which is pretty cool. They each will be updating a blog weekly over the course of that trimester. So these are the different pathways to honors and high honors, which appears on the student's diploma but not on their transcript. And high honors is contingent upon honors. So a student that does not earn those B minuses or take those 4 capstone courses is actually not eligible for high honors at all. And that's something that we very rarely come across, but it has happened a couple of times in the past. So just want to make you aware of that now. We already discussed standardized tests, but I want to again direct your attention to the standardized test handout that is in the packet that you were given. So here we are in Naviance, which is the website that I just mentioned. If you look to the left-hand side, these are all the pages that we custom made for our school. So they did not come with Naviance. Instead, we made them to better serve you. So if you scroll down from this homepage, you'll see that we have our standardized testing launch pads to go directly to the College Board or ACT website to register for tests or to see results. We also have a couple of our favorite college search websites outside of Naviance, so College Express and CapEx. From here, let's go to our Using Naviance page. This page has our linked Naviance user guide as well as several tutorials that you can watch. To learn more about Naviance and how it is used at BASIS Scottsdale, as well as the different tools and functionalities that you'll find. If we go to our testing resources page, here is where you will find checklists for which tests students should be taking and when, as well as launch pads again to those standardized testing websites and upcoming test dates. For students that got caught between the old SAT and the new one, they can convert their scores. They can also compare the 2 tests, and they can find a concordance that will show them what SAT scores align with ACT scores. The Academic Pathways tab is probably my favorite. This one allows students to really think about what it is that they might want to pursue as an academic or professional pathway. So we have these different umbrella categories, and it maybe will get them thinking about the different types of majors and careers that fall under each. So let's say I was interested in business. I could click on this business pathway and let's say general business, and it would generate RUGS recommendations, which is a really respected higher education resource. So we would see a list of all the highly selective, less selective schools that offer, number 1, offer a business major, but number 2, are good at business. So I can craft a list of safety, target, reach schools and know that despite overall selectivity, if I go to one of these schools, it is known in the business field, which is very important to go somewhere where I know that they do what I want and they do it well. So from there, let's go to our college visits page. Again, we had 94 visits this past year, which was an outstanding number, a record for us here. We have some happy students at visits pictured below. But if you look under campus visits, you will see we have some different charts, checklists that students can use to really capture their thoughts and prioritize their preferences, their criteria for what they want in a college or university. We also have for the fall our college visit permission forms and our college visit policy. Students can also take a look at different college visit photos from my own travels and Ms. Connor's own travels to colleges and universities where we've been able to take our own pictures. Now I'm going to jump up to our rec letters and resumes page. This is one teachers often utilize as well. So students can find letter of recommendation etiquette as well as a general request form so that students can familiarize their teachers with them and their applications, their goals, as well as provide them with talking points. So especially for summer programs, internships, you name it, this is super helpful. And then a resume overview. A lot of times students are asked to also submit a resume, or it's optional and can show an added layer of professionalism. And we've created a resume template that reflects what a BASIS Scottsdale student's resume might look like, drawing from our extracurricular activities and clubs. So now if I go to summer programs, here I can find a list of reputable summer programs that we've heard about compiled on our own. We have some great math programs that Ms. Bailey has suggested to us, volunteer opportunities. So what we want to emphasize here is that you don't have to do a summer program or a summer camp to be an attractive applicant to the colleges and universities. Instead, it's about having a meaningful and a productive experience. So that can be something that comes from a variety of different things or ways that you've pursued your passions, your interests, and it's something that we talk about with students when we have our one-on-ones. Some general information about the senior projects. You can view past projects, go to the project website, check out the project manual to see what the expectations are for a senior project participant. Also want to mention that the AP research projects are another pathway to high honors for those who choose to pursue them. Scholarships and aids is something that is going to familiarize families with the difference between the two, as well as how to navigate both processes, something that they will probably primarily do when their students are in the process of applying to the colleges, but always good to get documents organized prior to then and gain an understanding of how the system works. So now let's go to our resource library. Here's where we can find historical newsletters, check out featured alums of the month, past presentations, all of the handouts that you find in your college counseling workbook. We also have links to our school's handbook and the academic calendar that you can click on here. So now to the tabs that Naviance provides. Let's begin by going to colleges. So let's try Arizona State University first. So from here, I can learn more about the school. And if I go to communicate at the top or the bottom, and I go get in touch with your college contact, here you can see that we have our admissions officers listed. These are our regional officers that actually work with our students and read their applications, as well as our alums. So I can scroll down, I can find this list of alums if I choose to reach out or communicate with them about their experience. These are alums that have indicated that they would be very happy to talk to current students. So if I click that contact, it generates an email field and I can go ahead and send an email to that admissions officer or to that BASIS Scottsdale alum. If I go to colleges I'm thinking about, you can see that these schools have all been added by the student, but it would also appear if the school had been added by the counselor or by the parent. So that's really helpful to be able to see as well. Under the careers tab, students can explore different careers and clusters, which is pretty cool, kind of similar to the pathways. It complements it. So let's say I click on finance. From here, I get an overview of different careers in finance, related majors, plans of study, and I can add these clusters to my list. I can add the specific cluster to my list. I can also add the specific sub area. So this is a helpful tool because students can then go back to their favorite careers and clusters. And you can see here that I have specifically business finance under finance, and also previously had added law and public safety. So also under careers, students can take different self-assessments. So Do What You Are and the Career Interest Profiler are both assessments that the student can take as many times as they like, that will help them learn what type of major or career might be a fit for them. There's also a really cool resource called Road Trip Nation. So you can see 3,500 videos that students can peruse to learn more about particular career pathways. So they're essentially job shadowing via video, and students can search by interest area, theme, leader, or create a random playlist. So that's something that I think is pretty cool to play with as well. If students go to the About Me, this is where they can find things like their checklist, and this is important because it complements that checklist at the front of their college counseling workbook. So this is something where students can mark tasks as complete as they're accomplished, as can we. So for instance, once a student has taken the SAT or ACT for the first time, they can indicate that here. Where the one-on-one meetings are concerned, those are tasks that can only be marked as complete by the college counselor, and it will appear on what date the student attended that meeting. So speaking of which, if we go to documents, this is where students can find the very notes from their one-on-one meetings. So we store those here, and parents can see those as well. This is a quick route to favorite careers and clusters, favorite colleges, if students want to navigate to them from this About Me page. Completed surveys is where students would find any of the surveys that they've completed after attending a college visit, if they did complete that survey that we send to them to record their thoughts and observations. Students can journal and add notes to their Naviance if they would like. This is also where students find their GPA information, their email information if they need to update it, and their test scores. So students, nothing has been added for this imaginary student, but even the student's AP scores would be listed here. So it's a really nice place to find everything all compiled very neatly. On the left-hand side, this is where students find that awesome college counseling questionnaire I was mentioning. So this is where they let us gain insight into their lives, their interests, so we can best counsel them. They can add academic moments that they feel are defining, athletic activities, clubs, and here is where we want them to not only list the activity itself, but to add the details. So what exactly did they do in this role? They can also let us know if there are any colleges or universities on their radar, because we do add students to different student groups within Naviance so that we can send them communications and correspondence that might relate to their interests or the schools that they are interested in. So that's kind of a brief overview of Naviance. I hope you found it helpful. We certainly think that this new platform has given a lot of new utility to our students. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out at any time.